Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Purity Mwenda. For those of you who are new, karibu sana. Those who are coming back, and feel welcome and thank you for tuning in this channel. So this is the channel where we discuss about academic writing, various things. We discuss various aspects of writing, and once in a while we engage in life activities and talk about life as in general. So today guys, you're going to look at the different terms used in defining or giving instruction in academic writing or when writing different essays, and how the writer is expected to answer them or even to interpret them. Essay term number one, we're going to start with analyze and what it means. So when you're trying to analyze, you're expected to break down an issue into constituent parts and look in-depthly on each part. Then after understanding each part in-depthly, you're supposed to consider the arguments for and argument against each part. So on the second term is assess. So whenever you're given to assess a topic, you're supposed to weigh up the extent something is true. So you weigh how much the information or the research or the content presented in a certain source is true. As a writer, you're supposed to persuade your reader with your argument by citing relevant research. So when you think something is actually true or not, you're supposed to provide the relevant sources to ensure that they actually back up what you say. Okay, so as a writer, you're supposed to back up your argument by citing relevant sources. Remember to point out any flaws and counter argument as well. Conclude by stating how far you are in an argument with the original proposition, how far you are in agreement, how much you agree with the original proposition. So despite stating the flaws and counter argument of an idea, you're still supposed to state how much you agree or do not agree with the original proposition. So that is assessing. When you're trying to clarify in an instruction, you're supposed to make something more clearer for the reader and even simpler for them to understand. This could involve explaining in simpler terms a complex process or theory, or you need to set up relationship between two or more variables. It's as simple as making them understand easily or decomposing something which is complex to be easily understood. It's as simple as that. There is another term which is compare. In comparing, you identify the similarities and differences between two or more phenomena. Say if any of the shared similarities or differences are more important than other. Compare and contrast will often feature together in any essay question. So it's as simple as providing the similarities and differences and identifying which are more important than the other. Okay, as you know, you cannot compare one thing. It has to be one, or it has to be two or more, right? So another term, essay term, is consider. This one I'll get to read it. Consider. When you're trying to consider in an essay, you're supposed to say what you think and have observed about something. Support your comment using appropriate evidence from external sources or your own experience. Also, include any views which are contrary to your own and how they relate to your original thoughts. Okay, so when you're considering, you're simply giving out what you think or what you've observed about something, remembering to give even the opposite side and how they relate with what you believe or what you think is right. Okay, there is contrast, as you said above there, that contrast, compare and contrast goes together. So in contrast, it's just one-sided. When you're trying to contrast, you're supposed to to provide the dissimilarities. So those are the differences between two or more phenomena. So similar to compare, but with focus on this is when you're trying to contrast, it's similar to compare, but its focus is on the dissimilarities between two or more phenomena. You might consider what sets the idea apart from one another, point out differences which are particularly significant. So you're supposed to show what actually differentiate one from the other, the major differences. Okay, there is defining. So when you're taught to define, or maybe define a certain term, define a certain theory, you're supposed to give a precise term. You're supposed to give precise terms the meaning of something, highlight any problems posed in the definition and different interpretation that may exist. As you know, sometimes there are words that have different interpretation, or they have different definitions. So when you're supposed to define, you're supposed to give them all to ensure that the reader actually understands circumstances when that particular term is defined differently. Okay, it's also necessary to highlight any flaws, which are any challenges that might be encountered when defining any term. Okay, that is demonstrate. Demonstrate is also used to mean as simple as show how, with examples to illustrate. So when you're supposed to demonstrate, you do not only show how something operates or something occurs, but you're also supposed to give examples for illustrations. Okay, another term is describe. Describe refers to providing a detailed explanation of how and why something happens. It's providing a detailed explanation of how and why something happens. Okay, there is discuss. Discuss. This is a written debate. You will use skills of reasoning backed up with evidence. The aim is to make a case for and against an argument, or point out advantages and disadvantages of a given context. Remember to always come to a conclusion. So when you're discussing, you make sure that you use your reasoning, your reasoning, but do not necessarily use your own view or opinion. You still need to use the evidence to back up your work. And remember to provide the pros and cons, and at the end of the paper come to a conclusion. All right. There is elaborate. Elaborate. It's to give more detail and provide more information on something or opinion. So when you're supposed to elaborate, you are simply supposed to give more information. All right. I hope you're keeping up with the pace, and it's not so hard to understand, or I'm not using two simple words to explain it. I hope it's understandable. So there's another word. I lost count of this, so I'll just say examine. Examine. So when you're supposed to examine, you're supposed to look in close detail and establish the key facts and important issues surrounding a topic. This should be a critical evaluation. Thus, you should try to offer reasoning why the fact and issues you have identified are the most important. You will also need to explain the different ways they can be understood. I hope that's understandable. So there's another important word, which is critically evaluate. Critically evaluate, I know it actually disturbs so many people. You just wonder, how am I supposed to do this? What does it mean? So when you're supposed to critically evaluate, you're supposed to give your verdict on the extent to which a statement or finding within a piece of research are true. You may need to state to what extent you agree with them, Support your discussion with evidence. Kindly, if you've noticed in everything except whenever you're using your own opinion, you're still supposed to provide evidence to back up your work and make it more relevant or more accurate. Okay, accurate. All right. So you may need to state to what extent you agree with them. Support your discussion with evidence taken from a wide range of sources. Make sure you consider sources which are both agree with and contradict with the argument. So when you give the for and against arguments, you're supposed to come to a conclusion. In doing so, base your decision on what you judge to be the most important factor. Finally, justify what made you to make the choice. Okay, so even after taking a side or coming to a conclusion, you still need to give the reader the reason why you had to come to that conclusion by providing the evidence. All right, and evidence that support your argument. Explain refers to clarifying a topic by giving a detailed account of how and why it occurs, or you may need to set out what terms means in a particular context. Your writing should have clarity. You need to describe complex procedures or sequences of events, define terms where appropriate, and support your points with relevant research. After explain, there is explore. In exploring, you adopt a question approach and consider a variety of different viewpoints. Where possible, reconcile opposing views by presenting a final line of argument. So in exploring, you adopt a questioning approach and consider a variety of different viewpoints. So if you're exploring a topic, you need to look at how different people consider it, or how different people view the idea. The last one in this video, to make sure that it's not so long and boring, is give an account of. In giving an account of, so when you're told to give an account of a certain event, give an account of a certain idea, or an account of a certain occasion, you're supposed to give a detailed description of something, not to be confused with account for. You're not supposed to, it's not like, it doesn't really mean to account for, which accounting for, you give the reasons why. It's how and why. But in giving the account of, you're simply describing something. Giving an account of is simply describing something, how it happened. Okay, so that is the end of our part 1 of, let's say part 1 of 2 of explaining the essay terms and instructions.